Anthony Joshua versus Konstantin Airich tomorrow. Um, First thoughts on this fight is that I was probably slightly uninspired. Didn't see Airich as a real threat. Wanted to see Joshua in a interesting fight in what I must say isn't the most scintillating bill I've ever seen in my life. Having done a bit more research into the fight, I'm feeling slightly more charitable. My thought process hasn't changed that I don't think Airich will pose a threat to Joshua. I haven't seen any articles or heard any commentators online suggesting that they think Airich has a realistic chance of beating him. Not that that's what you'd expect with an Olympic gold medalist in their 8th fight anyway, but I've had a look into the fight and, as I say, feel slightly more charitable. With regards to Airich, his record, I'm just looking down at my note just here, 21 wins, 17 by KO, 9 losses. Of those 9 losses, he's been stopped 4 times and 2 draws. So he's fought 32 times, 21 wins. It's not a bad sort of record compared to some of the guys you see out there. The fact that he's had 17 of those wins by knockout, also respectable. I'm a big Luis Ortiz fan. I made a video on him earlier today actually, but if you look at some of the guys he was knocking over as recently of 5 or 6 fights ago, guys with losing records, guys in their debut, guys who've had 3 fights, this is a level above those sort of guys. Airich is a level above some of the guys Deontay Wilder was fighting after 7-8 fights, certainly, so we say. So perhaps my initial instincts on this one were a bit harsh. I had a look at Airich's record in a bit more detail. There's some respectable form in there. He beat Andre Parla, for example, which I didn't know until I think I did know, but I didn't know off the top of my head. First time round. Now Andre Parla was deemed a respectable opponent for Chisora, a respectable opponent for Price. People saw that fight as a competitive fight when Parla was announced. So, if Parla is a decent fight for, Price, Chisora, surely a guy who's beaten Parla and in fact stopped Parla in the 9th round is actually not a bad fight for Joshua in his 8th fight since turning pro. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I expect Airich to win. Not at all, really. I'm just saying that for an 8th fight, perhaps we shouldn't be too harsh. Airich, he does have a knack of lasting a few rounds. I had a look. He fought Odlaner Solis, Tsar Glazkov, both of whom are top 20 heavyweights, shall we say. And I think he went the distance with both of those guys. Both of those guys at the moment are operating a level above Anthony Joshua. So the fact he went the distance with those guys, particularly Solis, I think is relatively impressive. People do hark on about the Manuel Char first round stoppage. It's a slightly dubious stoppage, but realistically it's not the best form, obviously. Having said that, these things happen, and I think if you look at Airich's form at its best, beating Parla, going the distance with Solis, going the distance with Glazkov, he's a really, really respectable fight for the 8th defence. Now, my understanding is number 9 will go for fight number 9 for Joshua will be Bakhtov. Bakhtov and Airich fought last time out in a close fight, which Bakhtov won. The fight before that, the fight after that, so I say, my understanding is the intention is Michael Sprott, perhaps for a British champion. So we're slowly building there, and it is still early days. But I think compared to some of the fights, some of the heavyweights out there are taking on, this isn't a bad move for Joshua. And I think people are being overly harsh criticising him about the level of opposition he's facing. I don't think Airich is going to do a job on him I watched the weigh-in the other day on IFL TV. He's a lot smaller. He's 6'1". He was really looking up at Anthony Joshua like this. When I first saw him get on the scales, he didn't look like the biggest heavyweight. I think he weighed in at 15 stone 1. So I think Joshua's 5 or 6 inches taller, 2.5 stone heavier, a lot younger. But not a bad fight for his 8th fight at pro, which is really what it comes down to. What I'd like to see from Joshua in this fight, I'd like to see he's learnt something from his recent sparring with Klitschko. I think I'd like to see a less robotic Joshua. I don't want to see just him throwing a really. I don't want to see him 10 stop like this and throwing a 1-2 constantly. And I'd like to see him move. I'd like to see him use his feet. I'd like to see him look slightly less rigid and slightly less tense. Have his jab slightly more like it's on a piece of elastic rather than just running up and down a train track. And obviously the stoppage as well. Nobody's taken Joshua beyond 2 rounds. Wouldn't surprise me if Airich got beyond 2 rounds, but also wouldn't surprise me if Joshua ended it early. So I do see this fight Joshua stoppage. Hopefully he gets through it without any cuts or bruises, and he can go on to fight Back 12, who I think is scheduled just a few weeks down the line. Keen to hear people's thoughts as always.